Picture a Naval Special Warfare Development Group operator under studio lights, his trident visible on a blue blazer, a book contract sitting beside a television makeup chair. Now cut to a Fort Bragg squadron room with empty chairs, black gear lockers, and tape labels marked by letters instead of last names. In American Special Operations lore, most people assume DEVGRU is the elite of the elite. Inside this Fort Bragg hallway, most people are wrong about what elite means. There is a number whispered around special operations circles, a number tied to how many DEVGRU operators have wanted Delta Force in the last decade. The number sounds simple in a bar near Virginia Beach or Fayetteville, but the public record turns that simple number into fog. So hold that number in your mind while the trident on the television desk starts to look different. The visible Tier 1 world has a Navy shape, and that shape is a gold trident. For American civilians, the trident became a cultural object after pirates held the Maersk, Alabama in the Indian Ocean, and after the Abbottabad compound made DEVGRU famous around the planet. Captain Phillips put Navy snipers into Hollywood theaters, and Operation Neptune Spear put a classified squadron into American living rooms. That is a strange thing for a unit built for secrecy. A Navy command that once lived in rumor became a brand on airport bookshelves, cable news panels, workout shirts, challenge coins, and podcast thumbnails. The trident became a symbol that a civilian could buy, wear, quote, and monetize. The men inside that world did not all ask for the spotlight. Many DEVGRU operators spent years under night vision, desert dust, helicopter rotor wash, and shipboard salt without ever saying a public word. But the culture around the Navy SEAL brand became louder than the men who wanted silence. The Bin Laden raid changed the American Special Operations marketplace. Publishers wanted memoirs from Abbottabad. Television producers wanted faces from Dam Neck. Corporate leadership conferences wanted stories from the kill house and the compound. A former operator could step out of the Navy and find a civilian highway lined with book advances, consulting retainers, paid speeches, security work, fitness brands, and flag-draped media profiles. That highway matters because career math matters. A DEVGRU operator who leaves the Navy can often carry a recognizable symbol into civilian life. The trident opens doors before the man even speaks. A business audience in Dallas or Tampa may not know the difference between a Whiteside SEAL platoon and a Joint Special Operations Command Squadron, but the audience knows the trident. That recognition can be useful, but recognition can also become a trap. The same trident that sells books also draws investigators, journalists, critics, prosecutors, angry teammates, and strangers with cell phones. The public turns a classified career into a permanent argument. Across the Special Operations map sits another room, and that room is quieter. 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta sits in the Army world, inside the orbit of Fort Bragg, under the Joint Special Operations Command. The public calls it Delta Force, but many inside the community just call it the unit. Delta Force has a reputation that travels without a face. The unit appears in footnotes, redacted books, courtroom fragments, old Mogadishu photographs, Iraq raid stories, and whispers from men who still do not say squadron names at dinner tables. Its operators can walk through an airport in civilian clothes and look like contractors, hunters, gym teachers, or tired fathers coming home from a work trip. That anonymity is not a weakness. In the Delta Force culture, anonymity is part of the weapon system. The unit does not need a public brand because the mission does not reward a public brand. If DEVGRU became the trident in American culture, Delta Force remained the shadow moving behind the map. The operational difference starts with service identity. DEVGRU grew out of naval special warfare, maritime counterterrorism, ship takedowns, offshore problems, and Navy access. Delta Force grew out of an Army hostage rescue vision shaped by the British Special Air Service, land warfare, foreign internal pressure, and the hard lessons of Desert One. By the post-9/11 wars, both units were National Mission Force assets, and both units worked far beyond their original lanes. DEVGRU operators fought in Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, and Pakistan. Delta Force operators hunted networks across Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and places the Pentagon still prefers not to name. But the flavor of the work diverged. DEVGRU often sat closest to tactical raids that made clean sense on a Navy or Joint Command tasking board. A compound, a hostage site, a ship, a high-value target, a helicopter package, a direct assault, and a short public sentence after the fact. Delta Force more often appears in reporting around interagency problems that sit in the gray zone. The unit has been tied to missions where the Central Intelligence Agency, foreign partners, intelligence collectors, local proxies, and military assault forces share one dark table. In that world, the operator may be less commando celebrity and more moving part inside a classified machine. The Abbottabad raid shows the overlap better than any recruiting poster. The raid used DEVGRU operators and Army aviators, but public museum records describe the plan as officially led by the Central Intelligence Agency under broader secret operation authorities. New Yorker reporting described the mission as plotted at agency headquarters, authorized under agency legal statutes, and conducted by Navy DEVGRU operators. That single mission tells you why the Trident and the Shadow can occupy the same building but live in different mythologies. DEVGRU pulled the trigger in the story the public remembers. The interagency architecture around the raid points toward the Shadow world, where Delta Force often feels culturally at home. A DEVGRU operator looking across that divide is not necessarily chasing a better unit. At the Tier 1 range, better becomes the wrong word. The real question inside the squadron room is what kind of work the man wants after the trophy case stops meaning anything. A senior Navy operator may already have the raids, the medals, the deployments, the injuries, the divorce scars, and the folded flags from teammates. Another hard entry through another door may not answer the deeper itch. The itch may be operational scope, autonomy, and the chance to disappear into problems that never become movie scripts. Inside the Damneck locker room, that is where the career math turns brutal. A DEVGRU operator who tries to cross into Delta Force gives up the cleanest civilian brand in American special operations. He may give up Navy seniority, community identity, and the comfort of a tribe that already knows his scars. He may trade a trident that civilians understand for an Army world that will never explain him. The gain sits on the other side of the ledger. Delta Force offers a culture where a man can be judged by the room instead of the audience. The unit offers a mission set reported to run deeper into unilateral work, intelligence fusion, foreign partner problems, and operations where no press release is the best outcome. For some operators, that quiet is worth more than the check from a speaking bureau. The most famous public crossover is Kevin Holland. Holland served in SEAL Team 8, earned selection into DEVGRU, left the Navy before the post-9/11 wars, returned after September 11, and later served with Delta Force. His story is not a simple last-decade transfer request, but his career proves the bridge exists in public record. Kevin Holland's career file also proves how rare the bridge is. The open-source world does not show a long roster of DEVGRU men who crossed into Delta Force with their names, dates, and paperwork attached. The public record shows one clear Kevin Holland name, and that single name has carried an entire legend because the rest of the hallway stays dark. If this kind of special operations history belongs in your feed, subscribe to the channel before the next Fort Bragg story disappears into the archive. The next section is where the culture split gets sharper, because the Trident did not become famous by accident. By the early 2010s, the Navy SEAL world had a celebrity vector that no other special operations tribe matched. Lone Survivor, American Sniper, No Easy Day, The Operator, podcast tours, foundation galas, leadership companies, and gym culture all pushed the SEAL image into the American mainstream. Some of those stories honored real sacrifice, and some of those stories built real support for families. But the brand also trained civilians to see the SEAL as the face of American manhood under fire. Delta Force took the opposite path. The unit's old code did not require the public to understand the room. A Delta operator could retire into a cabin, a contracting job, a training range, or a normal neighborhood without becoming a logo. The silence protected the mission, but it also protected the man from becoming a product. That divide creates pressure inside DEVGRU. A young operator may join naval special warfare for the water, the hardship, the teams, and the fight. After Abbottabad, he may discover that the public has already written a character for him. The character wears a trident, sells a book, gives a speech, and tells the audience what happened behind the wall. Plenty of men resist that character. Some veterans publicly criticize the memoir culture and the race to claim pieces of classified history. Some teammates see the book deals as betrayal. Some commanders see the media circuit as a security risk. Some older hands look at the trident on a dust jacket and see the beginning of rot. The Navy criticism is not imaginary. The No Easy Day controversy turned one Bin Laden raid memoir into a legal and cultural warning. Mark Owen, the pen name used by former operator Matt Bissonnette, became a symbol of what happens when classified service meets publishing speed, money, and fame. The government response, the non-disclosure fight, and the lost royalties reminded every quiet professional that a bookstore can become a battlefield. Robert O'Neill became another public flashpoint after he claimed the fatal shot on bin Laden. Supporters saw a decorated veteran giving closure to the September 11 families. Critics saw a teammate stepping into a spotlight that belonged to the mission, the squadron, and the dead. Either way, the camera turned a team action into a personal brand. Inside the special operations community, that spotlight has consequences. Every public face makes the next silent operator easier to identify. Every paid story makes the next classified mission harder to defend from curiosity. Every argument over who fired which shot pulls the mission farther from the team room and closer to a television studio. Delta Force culture offers an escape from that noise. The unit is not pure, and no military organization made of human beings ever is. Delta has its own failures, rivalries, egos, accidents, controversies, and ghosts. But the public culture around the unit punishes noise faster and rewards silence more consistently. That matters to a dev group operator who has grown tired of being associated with celebrity he never asked for. The man may want the work without the costume. He may want to brief a target folder without wondering which former teammate will discuss a similar raid on a podcast. He may want a room where the highest compliment is not applause, but being forgotten by everyone outside the team. There is also a rank and maturity difference inside the Army pipeline. Delta Force often draws from soldiers who spent years in infantry, ranger, and special forces worlds before selection. The Army path can produce operators who are older, stranger, more rural, more language capable, or more comfortable living under cover among foreign people. That does not make the Army man tougher than the Navy man, but it can make the unit feel different in the field. DEVGRU draws from the SEAL pipeline, and that pipeline creates its own excellence. Water confidence, maritime access, small team aggression, physical endurance, and close assault skill shape the Navy operator. Inside the dam neck cage, the problem is not capability. The problem is dam neck cultural gravity. Gravity explains the reverse vector. You do not see the same public pattern of Delta Force operators trying to become Dev Group operators. A Delta operator who leaves Fort Bragg for the Trident would be trading anonymity for a louder brand, Army identity for Navy culture, and a shadow career for a symbol civilians recognize on a hat. That move may exist in isolated personnel stories, but it does not define the flow. The Fort Bragg asymmetry tells you something. Operators rarely run toward more scrutiny after tasting true institutional silence. Men who have spent years inside the unit usually do not need a trident to validate the work. The lack of a reverse stampede is part of the verdict. The post-9/11 mission distribution sharpened that verdict. In Iraq and Afghanistan, Joint Special Operations Command became a machine for finding, fixing, exploiting, and dismantling networks. Tactical raids mattered, but intelligence exploitation mattered just as much. The man kicking the door became only one piece of a larger system built from phones, biometrics, safe houses, signals, drones, informants, foreign services, analysts, and partner forces. Dev Group excelled at the raid piece. Delta Force excelled at the raid piece too, but its culture often seemed more comfortable inside the wider interagency maze. The shadow world needs men who can shoot, but it also needs men who can wait, blend, listen, brief, negotiate, and vanish without a patch on the wall. That is the part Hollywood misses. The elite operator is not always the man with the most recognizable insignia. Sometimes the elite operator is the man whose mother cannot explain his job at a barbecue in North Carolina. Sometimes the mission that matters most is the one that never gives the operator a clean story for a microphone. So now we can pay off the number from the opening studio lights and Fort Bragg lockers. If the question is how many Dev Group operators have requested transfer to Delta Force in the last decade, the defensible public answer is not a precise public roster number. The defensible public answer is that open sources support one publicly known crossover in Kevin Holland, while community discussion points to a small, single-digit rumor band for requests or attempts that cannot be verified from public records. That may sound less dramatic than the barroom number, but the smaller number is more revealing. If dozens of Dev Group operators had openly crossed into Delta Force, the story would be personnel trivia. Because the public record shows only one clear bridge and a fog of whispered attempts, the story becomes cultural pressure instead of roster counting. The unit chiefs already know that pressure. They know which men want a new selection course after years at Dam Neck. They know which men are tired of the SEAL brand. They know which men would trade a recognizable trident for a locked door in Fort Bragg. They also know which men only love the idea of Delta Force until the Army selection trail removes the romance from the fantasy. This Fort Bragg and Dam Neck contrast matters. Dev Group is not lesser because civilians can see the trident. Delta Force is not greater because civilians cannot see the shadow. But within this narrow conversation, the operator who chooses the shadow over the trident is making a statement about what he believes elite should mean. The statement is not about movie raids or internet arguments. The statement is about whether a man wants recognition after the mission or erasure after the mission. The statement is about whether the highest form of status is being known by millions or being trusted by 12 people in a locked squadron room. The old American audience understands that distinction better than younger viewers think. Cold War men grew up with submarines that disappeared under polar ice, pilots who never discussed reconnaissance routes, and intelligence officers whose families heard only cover stories. That older world respected the man who could carry a secret without turning it into a product. The modern special operations market flipped that instinct. The trident became a civilian language. The shadow remained a military dialect. A dev group operator who looks toward Delta Force may be choosing the older language. So when the debate starts in the comments, do not make it a playground argument about which unit is tougher. Both rooms are filled with men who have done work the public will never fully understand. The sharper question is which culture protects the work better after the shooting stops. DEVGRU is the trident. Delta is the shadow. If American Tier 1 culture had to choose one symbol for the future, which one should survive?